photos on top of that and just give them an award and then take a picture. So we've done that for whatever it is, 35, 36 weeks. So that's the total student awards we've given. Recognized 12 students of the quarter thus far. And our office discipline referrals, which are major behaviors, are currently at 141. We celebrated Teacher Appreciation Week, which is always a fun week just to show appreciation to the staff. So we did several things. PTA brought in coffee and donuts on Monday. On Tuesday, we did a food cart where we went around and delivered chips and candy, cookies, drinks. Wednesday, the two counselors and I covered recess, so the teachers actually got a 40-minute lunch and they enjoyed that. Thursday, we covered the lunches, so those teachers that had lunch supervision got a 40-minute duty-free lunch. And then Friday, we did root beer and orange floats, and we had a flight theme for the year, so we just tried to use some wording like, thanks for keeping us floating in the clouds this year. Also celebrated School Nurse Day. Why is that fun? Oh.
Floating in the clouds.
Floating in the clouds. That's where we were at. Choir concert was Monday, and next Tuesday is our band concert. So kind of our final spring concerts. We've worked with Julie to organize a 4th grade transition, so they're coming over next Thursday. And we're gonna do kind of a thing in our media center as a whole group, and then we have various stations for our 4th graders to go to, just to help with that transition, help them learn a little bit more about the building, who the teachers will be. Setting up final summer school preparations, we're about ready for that. Looking at sending out schedules the last day in May. And then the coordination of end of year field trips, we're sending out notices to parents. So our 5th grade is going to Fun Lab in Blaine, 6th grade Wild Mountains, 7th grade is going to the Acreage and kayaking, and 8th grade has their culminating trip to Valley Fair. So that's a little bit about what's happening at the middle school.
Awesome. Questions for Darren? Awesome. Julie Bennett.
Okay. Also, my newsletter is there. So an exciting thing, a new initiative with kind of a different name. Last week we partnered with the high school FFA and moved forward with something called Egg on the Lawn, and it was awesome. Addie, you were there, so you can definitely add to this. So we had more than I could even imagine was there. So from a ton of animals, to where like the great big cows with the great big, like not bulls, but the Tennessee
Longhorns.
that, and there were 2 of them, and one was tan, one was black. They're beautiful cows. They were, and I got to feed one. But then the kids rotated, our 2nd and 3rd graders rotated through different stations. In the high school FFA, they led each station, and it was great. It was cool to have it right in the lawn up there at the intermediate school. So if you remember years back, and you might have to help me with this, it was like dairy days at the elementary school. So that's kind of what this is, but it's 2nd, 3rd grade, and it's called Egg on the Lawn. So it's something that we definitely want to keep doing. And there was a baby goat, and you had your lamb without a voice box, so it couldn't it just yeah, cutest thing.
It can't fall.
It's like a puppy.
Yeah, that day actually we had leadership and I came in all excited because I wanted to get a lamb. Okay. I will not, but it was very exciting. So thank you to FFA and Amanda Leeds. Like it was great. Our spring concerts. Great success, so thank you to the 4K for specialist team, especially Kelly Boyle and all of her hard work there. Board exam results, we have found out that they're coming to us on May 27th this year, so that will be exciting to see what this year brought when it comes to our academic achievement and our growth. The building visits, kind of going off of what Darren just said, working with the middle school, 4th grade's going over. And then on that same day in the morning, we are bringing over, and this sounds crazy, kindergartners and 1st graders. They're coming on over as our incoming 1st and 2nd graders. So that will be exciting. And then that same night, we're going to do a parent night and open up our doors and get the parents in so they can meet, the teachers and just all the things with this being new, bringing over those first graders. But yeah, we are looking forward to that. And then thank you to all the teachers and staff for the appreciation week, and PTA. It's always great when they drop off those donuts and coffee. And I did not float on the clouds, but instead of floating on the clouds,
It's too bad.
the teachers for K4, they actually got suckers, and the sucker was the shape of a donut. And I don't remember what it was. It was like, don't jump. I don't remember what the little saying was, but it was better than floating on the clouds. Never with the clouds. And I have wonderful Patricia Kramer here this evening as well, because we're going to give you some Act 20 updates. So I will go ahead and start with that, and she'll take over. But with Act 20, you remember we presented months ago, as this is the new Wisconsin guidelines on what we were doing with our reading practices, our early literacy. So we are responsible for screening our youngest learners. It's 4K3. 4K doesn't get screened right away. They were screened this spring, and we need to make sure that we're putting forward plans for any student who is scoring below that 25th percentile in certain different criteria areas. So we were able to, last time we brought you guys some data on what we predicted could possibly be where those reading plans were going to be, and the prediction was off. It was fewer than what we predicted just from our fall maps test, but Ames Web, and Patricia can go deeper into this if she wants, it measures different, the in-depth early literacy versus just what that map growth is doing. So she can give you an update now on what else is happening with Act 20.
All right, we have winter testing, which we did in January of 2025. Each teacher was able to test all of their students in their class. Like Julie said, 4K was not tested because they're only expected to be tested in fall and spring. And then from those screeners, any student that was below the 24th percentile, we then did more testing on them. It's called diagnostic testing to see where their areas of weaknesses were and how we could support them. And then based upon teacher feedback, based upon those diagnostic testing scores, we then took that information and created groups to support those students, whether they'd be meeting with a teacher, an interventionist, and we progress monitored them for about the last 8 to 10 weeks, just making sure they were making the progress they needed to be. If they weren't making that progress, we pulled those groups back to try to decide how to support them more. We just had spring testing back in April. From spring testing, we sent home a progress monitoring report, just allowing parents to see what we're doing, how we're supporting the students in the classroom. And then what's to come next is fall testing. So in fall, they'll come back, we'll do another round of testing. 4K will be included in this. We will send home new and updated personal reading plans, and then we'll move on from there. Again, diagnostic testing, and we'll see what they need as far as their support systems from there.
Can I ask how long what's the minimum amount of time they have to stay in these, if they get to this point where they're needing the extra groups or classes? What's
So
the
we do
minimum amount of time?
There's not a minimum amount of time, it's based upon how much they need. So if they're not
Okay.
showing the growth, they're not showing the progress, we're gonna keep them in. And I don't like to exit them right away, because sometimes with that summer fallback,
Sure.
you're gonna just invite them right back onto it, and I don't want parents to be confused, like, oh, you said they were good, and now they need extra support. So I'd like to hold them a little bit longer, just to make sure that that progress is being made.
I like that.
Yeah.
And you don't have to necessarily start from the beginning in the fall
No.
with these
No.
kids. Okay.
Not at all.
Okay.
The really nice thing too, that we've learned through this is that the students who are being identified, it has not been a surprise.
Oh,
So
okay.
they're ones that we've identified on our own anyway.
Yeah.
Just the way that we follow the multi-level system of support, this is just another way of showing that we need to make sure that we're putting these
Yeah.
supports in place.
That's kind of reassuring though.
It is, like, in that, as we sit in these meetings with the grade level teachers and interventionists, we all just sit there like, yep, okay, so this one's already in a tier 3, well, this one was just going to be, moving into that tier 3 because it wasn't working in the tier 2, and then the reading plan is basically just outlining that for parents.
Sure.
So, yeah.
They sound really fluid when they talk about this,
Yeah,
but
they do.
please know that this has been developing throughout the year. Like, this was one of those unfunded mandates where, here, you need to do this, we believe it's best practice. And one of the policies that you'll see is the 3rd grade promotion policy that's tied to this law as well. So Patricia's gonna stick around because she was the one who framed that out, but the team working together, just creating the administrative pieces of its infrastructure, and then you have the staff that are delivering. So it's a really systemic plan that you're creating. And when you're talking about testing students in the spring and then testing them when they get back in the fall, we started skipping that because we didn't really need to know how much summer slide, right? So we're doing some things to try to ensure that our families engage in reading programs and use our public library and all the things over the summer, but it's important work. So thank you both.
Yes, thank you. Questions for Julie?
Did you wanna do the farm for fourth grade?
Oh, yes, yes. We visited, do you guys remember last year was the first year that Hans Johnson reached out, his kids are in school, it's all, I mean, I was his favorite teacher, because I was his phy ed teacher back in the day. So he wanted to make sure and get me involved in his life. And so what we've done is now we're going to his farm, and that's the one that's out by Horse Creek. So our fourth graders actually went there for half of a day last week, and it went great. It was a beautiful day outside. They got to see cows and calves and big machinery farm things. So it was just really, yeah, it's always a good time. So yes, a huge thank you to the Johnson family. Thank you for your reminder, Becky.
Education. I mean, that's a lot of
Yes.
ag education for second, third, and fourth graders.
Yes.
And they love doing it.
It's so exciting, right? They're just so excited about all of it. So it's good stuff.
All right. Scott Newton.
All right, as you know, this week is graduation week, with graduation being 7 o'clock on Friday. What that brings a lot of different energy in the high school this week. We had our first practice this morning at 9:15 with the seniors, which was fun and exciting, and it's a different feeling. Tonight is our first ever senior sunset tonight at the athletic complex. So at the beginning of the year, and this is where I think social media has a big impact, and as you see through changes. I think for years here in Osceola, I think like other schools, you do the same thing for how many years in a row. Oh, this is what we do for graduation. And little things change because what you see through social media. And I know it was last year's their first year, and what other schools do it too, but we did a senior sunrise at the beginning of the school year, right? Now we're doing a senior sunset. Amanda and I will be out there tonight. We have
9:30, if anyone wants to join.
yeah, 8 to 9:30. Sunset's supposed to be 8:35. Hoping mosquitoes are strong at 9. We get to but we're gonna have pizza for the kids, and we're gonna have hopefully just a nice little social setting for the kids to get together. When we had them this morning, we said their pizza was gonna be there. It went from probably 50 kids' hands to what?
A lot of them.
Most of them
Most
went
That's
up.
awesome.
So doing something like that tonight, hopefully have a little fun with them. Also right now with all the other stuff, of course, that we are starting to enter the WIA season for athletics. Which this week alone, there's been a lot of stuff, we're not there yet, but going into next week with Mid-Water Conference track meet being on Tuesday, softball starting on Thursday, I believe, but there's a lot of moving pieces that are happening for the kids. And also, thank you to Sarah Rowdy and Art Ate for the last 2 weeks, of course. This past Monday was our music concert, and the previous Monday was our band concert. They do an awesome job with our kids, and it's just one more thing, of course, they're preparing for it. It's busy for them, and now they're preparing for the graduation this Friday. Doors open at
4:30.
4:30, and people are there at 4:30. The graduates are supposed to be there at 5 for their photos with Cahill, and ironing out their caps and gowns, and all those other good things that are going on that we do in the back, so.
So many emotions.
Amanda Meyer, what do you think? All right, I linked in our main newsletter there, but AP testing had just lots of things that happened in May for our kids, a lot of pressure. So AP testing wraps up on Friday, so a huge thank you to Nicole Brown, because she tests, and we hire a couple subs to get that all done, because it consumes a lot of time, but lots of kids working hard on those tests this week and last week. Senior awards night, again, huge shout out to Nicole Brown, because she organizes all the local scholarships that we present. Last Wednesday was that night, so she takes care of all that organization, so she's got a lot on her plate this month. Our kids earned over $90,000 in scholarships, so that was pretty exciting for our seniors. And then this year we also combined kind of like our athletic signing, or I don't know, something you want to say about that?
No.
Okay.
And I think we found out that we're probably over $100,000 actually,
Yeah.
because there was over a 10 grand scholarship.
Yeah.
It was that one person earns,
Yeah.
and I don't think we counted that in, so And there's so much more, cause we
And we
used
don't even
to,
know, this is just our local.
these are
ones.
just local ones, because we used to offer for when students are in things with universities, but we had cut that out a little bit because our program is at like 2 hours long, it had to be so long for a night. But there are a lot of good things happening for our kids.
And then just a thank you to our senior advisors, Jen Rude, Nate Demling, and Amanda Wicklin are our senior advisors, and then our custodians too. There's a lot of setup and also probably our PE teachers, 'cause there's a lot of protection that happens around the gym this week to make sure nothing gets ruined or damaged or anything, so just takes all hands on deck, so ready for the big night. We're gonna do our walkthrough of all the buildings on Thursday after our graduation practice. And with the track meets being canceled, we're gonna go through all 4 buildings instead of going down on the track, so that will start on Thursday morning, so kids are excited, Friday morning, and kids are excited about that, so.
We panicked back here.
Yeah, sorry, Friday morning.
Did you get feedback on moving awards night up a week? Good, bad, otherwise?
No, that's
We
been a
did
couple
move it.
years.
Yep, it's just that Empty Bowls is back a week because of their first Wednesday, so.
It just seems to take a little pressure off this week for all
Yes.
the things.
When
you know
we
what I mean?
moved that a
So-
couple years ago, and this year rolled, everything, the schedule kind of it rolled 1 week for this year. But when we did that from 2 or 3 years ago, because I made a huge mistake when I was athletic director, we were behind some games, and I did not make friends that night where I had to move a couple games to Wednesday. We got everything in, but it was tight.
Yeah.
So we luckily made the change to help that out.
I think it's also noteworthy, I was at practice this morning, just because that's personal to me to be able to see these kids, you see the class of 25, and Mr. Newton did an amazing, get the opportunity to say to kids, we're one, that's why we don't decorate our hats, because we're one, we're not here for attention ourselves. And I think he just had a really powerful delivery on the why we do this, and who we're celebrating for, and it's all of you, it's not an individual, pretty powerful, so thank you, Mr. Newton, for that.
It's a big week, that's for sure. Yep. Alright, Shannon?
This is typically when we would bring a shell of our preliminary budget for 25-26 for the next year. But with where we are at the state level, we don't have a lot to give right now in terms of information other than what we've already presented to the board. So what we've presented is what we're going with right now. It's obviously very conservative. We're hoping that we're going to get something, a 60% spend reimbursement gaining traction. That's about all we've heard of right now. So what we had presented to the board and to the staff, those presentations, that's what we're going off of still. So new information to give in terms of the budget. Hopefully, July 1st is when we're saying it will be done, but I like to do. So we'll see. In terms of the tennis court update, the board allowed us to engage with CC10 for that project, and they have been very helpful thus far. Hunter has taken the lead on this. He has met with them, they came on site. They're going to come on the 28th and give a presentation. They're gonna talk about the pros and cons, talk a little bit about the cost of the project, what they anticipate, past projects that they've been a part of, so that will be good. One thing to keep in mind that we have talked about with the project is that when picking a site, it is important that we potentially go with one or the other just because of the cost of what it would be to do some testing within, testing for both sites rather than just one site. So that's just something for you guys to think about. We'll talk more about it when they come on the 28th. SRO update, we had a couple interviews last week, high quality candidates. It doesn't close until the 24th, so we have one more booked, I think on the 22nd of May. Team goes down. It's pretty great to be able to sit next to the chief and build relationships and interview people, and we have an opportunity to talk about what this could look like in kind of an informal setting, so that's pretty great. And the other thing I just want to put on your radar is we have a board meeting on June 11th, and I won't be here, and Tricia won't be here. So, I mean, I just wanted to put that on your radar, maybe we should talk about that next time. Tricia's gonna be in Ireland and I'm gonna be in Japan, so. Yeah, really hard for us to, be able to, yeah. So we are traveling together, but during that week, we won't be here. Obviously, don't feel good about that, but those are situations that we can't change, so. If we wanted to cancel the June 11th meeting, it wouldn't hurt my feelings at all. we just meet on the 28th, because then we have two in, June.
All right. With that, we'll move on to item 3, which is aligning and developing our facilities to best meet educational safety and security goals. A is the first reading of policies 1220, 1230, 1230.01, 3112, 5330, 5411, 5460, 5610, 5610.03, 5771, and 6320.
So just to kind of tee it up a little bit, so as new people here, the idea of this many policies, how come? Because as Tricia is coming forward and taking a deep look at the policies, you can see there are policies here that we haven't reviewed since 2016. So we wanna make sure that we're continuing to update our policies, even if we don't have an update, so a review process. So we can actually record when we're reviewed. So there's the updates that we get from Neola 2 times a year, and then there's gonna be the review policy. And then if we ever needed to update a policy because something happened and we needed to, we can bring it back to you. So in your list right now, you have policies to review, so if we just start with, like the 1220 and move through, you can see there's the review, and then there's the ones that actually, like the administration medication emergency care, that was a required update because there were some specific pieces that needed to be updated. So Rachel looked through that one and gave those updates. And then all the way to the brand new policy, like for pre-expulsion. So just wanted to make sure, like, right, there's a reason why all of them are on here, even the graduation one. This is an example of why it's important to look at your policies. We are doing the GED 2 program at our high school, and we didn't have it in our policy, so it was great to be able to just add it this time. But the reason the policy is being updated is because the state added financial literacy. Well, Osceola's been way ahead of that curve for years and years and years. LB has been teaching financial planning or financial literacy. So when that requirement for 2028 is in effect, we will already in fact be there. But I'm wondering if we can, because Patricia's here, take a look at the 3rd grade promotion policy. What number is that? It is 5411. So Tricia, do you wanna give any background on why we have to have the policy?
This policy came about through the Act 20 legislation that's been put through, our government, and it is a 3rd grade promotion policy. We're looking at promoting those students who are on a reading plan, because reading plans only go up to 3rd grade. What are we gonna do for those students after 3rd grade? So once students exit 3rd grade and they're still technically on a plan, we're still supporting those students. We're not just like knocking them off and just saying that they don't have any support. We're gonna give them intense interventions still. We're gonna provide summer school supports, and this does not start until August 31st, 2027. So it doesn't have to start until the 27-28 school year. And we're just making sure that these students are supported going in from 3rd to 4th grade. And it continues on to, if they're not making that progress that they're seeing, we're still supporting them as they go through their years of schooling, is what this is for, is promoting them with the supports that they really need to have.
Right, because when the law first came out, it was like, you will not grade accelerate a student if they don't pass the reading assessment. So everybody's gonna stop until they get to, and I think we all know when you do research on retention, that's not necessarily a great way. So there are other ways, as you read through the policy, for students if they score proficient, because right, we all agree, we all want kids to be able to meet that benchmark, right? 3rd grade reading score is super important. However, all kids develop at a different pace. And some kids have a disability. In some kids, it's their 2nd language. And they're not getting exemptions for any of those pieces. So in order for us to have a policy, and the other thing is, we have to offer a summer intensive, program. Offer, not require. So you can't require it, but you have to offer it. That's not something that we did it years and years ago. I think it's called the SEAL program. But we haven't had an intensive for 3rd graders in my time here. So again, that's why when you look at the 2027, the reason we have to adopt it, says you have to adopt it by July 1st. But you don't have to enact the summer school. If we enact it now, we would be doing summer school this year and the next year. So this gives us time to do a pilot next year to see how it goes before we step in. But when you read it, it is, and they also wanted to call it a retention policy and at-risk policy, and we get to create the words. So we created the words to look at what it is. In the DPI, the beautiful part is they have
provided a bunch of research for families that think they want to retain their students to look at, to show how retention isn't generally the best thing that you can do for kiddos. Any questions on that policy for Patricia while she's here?
What if we open it wider and say, is there any policies that people have in question? Cause, this is considered our first read, so if there's questions and things, now would be the time to get things to Becky and or Shannon. I think they all pretty much fall on Becky. Then the course of action would be our next board meeting. We would have these as in the consent agenda unless there was one that we needed to pull out and talk about more in depthly.
So on the purchasing one, did the amount change for the, did it go from 10 to 50,000?
Correct.
Why?
It aligns more with, I think, how we are in terms of how much projects cost nowadays. At being at 10,000, we would be going out quite frequently because there's not a lot out there these days that isn't around 10,000. So in order for us to just complete day-to-day operations or projects that need to be done in a timely manner, it's not necessarily feasible to go out every time that we have a $10,000 project that we're doing.
I just have some concern because we hadn't really been following the current policy, and now that it's raised, $50,000 seems high. But I know when we take the percentage to our total budget, it's probably, it's small, but it's a big dollar amount for anything to go through without board approval. And the other reason I'm concerned is, you know, the freezer, I mean, we talked about it, but it never came and got approved before the board. You know, the dollar amount before it ever really happened, you only saw the expenditures and then you had to kind of put it together, what the total cost ended up being. So I'm just afraid that some of those things will maybe fall through the cracks that the board may not know.
So I think there's kind of a differentiation between the purchasing and the guidelines in the purchasing slide and then the budget, right? If the board approves the budget in September, they give us the green light to go ahead and use the money that we have in those budget lines, right? The purchasing policy is just saying that we are going to seek out quotations, seek out bids. If you read the policies, it's not necessarily that we're bringing back to the board for approval, we're notifying potentially the board of these purchases that are gonna happen and that we did, you know, if you were to say, we went out to bid for, we're gonna get a new truck, right? And we went out to bid and we did seek bids for them and we took the lowest bid that we have, so that we're following those policies that we have listed. It's a, I would say, probably more aligned with what our peers are doing as well because of that. I mean, $10,000, between $10,000 and $50,000, there's a lot that goes on in districts that we have to do in a timely manner, so that would hold us up if we are looking to do summer projects and like that. But I understand, yeah, things had fallen through the cracks. I think that we, between having some conversations with the departments, have a better understanding of what the guidelines are and how purchases in excess of $10,000, $15,000 need to be handled going forward.
Ask a question. What was the original month, like, when was it set before and how much was it? Like, how much is there a ratio with this 2016 or is that when that was set at 10,000?
I think the last revision on the policy was May of 2020. It was adopted in 2016. The revision was in 2020. I can't speak to what it was before 2016, sure. But in 2020 it was 10,000.
10,000, okay. So like, in the last 5 years, everything seems to have doubled, you know, and I understand that. Is it 50,000 is just a number you pulled?
No.
I mean, if it went from 2020.
Reviewed other policies from other districts, make sure that we are in line with what other districts are like. It's also important to know we have to follow federal procurement guidelines when we're using federal funds too, so that's a whole nother packet of information information that we have to follow and bids that we have to seek with those federal dollars.
So like for the freezer, that was actually federal dollars.
Yeah.
So we didn't actually need to get bids or quotes, or what was the?
They should have followed a better procedure that too. I can't, like you said, there was a lot of conversation that led up to it, so I don't know what happened in those in-betweens, but, there very well could have been, some bids that had went out, and I don't know between the time that I came on and then it actually, the trigger was pulled on it, but.
How many $50,000+ purchases are annually made?
Can't answer that. I can get
I
that
mean, are we talking
information.
like 5 different things or 25, you know, I mean, not 100%, familiar with the budget, but I would assume that wouldn't be a large amount of items ordered.
No, I wouldn't say an excessive amount, but again, it depends on the year, depends on what projects that are going on within the district.
I believe that this policy doesn't call for board permission necessarily, it's board notification, so
Yep.
that would probably just be in the bill list,
Yep.
presumably, because
You approve the budget, this is just saying that we are going to do our due diligence in getting the best price that we can as a district.
other policy questions. All right, if you have questions that come up between now and our next meeting, feel free to email Becky, Shannon, and I, and we will do our best to get answered so that we can have this on our next agenda meeting. Item 3B is review the Polk County multi-hazard mitigation plan. It's my favorite mitigation plan.
Oh, right, how about that?
And again,
Top 3.
yeah, well, and the intent of being part of that, if I remember, is so that we can access any kind of FEMA grants. So by being a sign-on with the Polk County, plan, that allows us to do that. But in order to do that, we have to have a resolution was a surprise to me, but I then was at the village board meeting, and they actually did their resolution, so I was like, oh, okay, so this is a normal part of all of this. When Hunter and I emailed back Chris, he was like, I'm like, what do we have cooking? Do we have any room for grants? Like, where are you at right now? And he's like, yeah, everything's at a standstill. But still felt appropriate to move forward, because we actually did it last year, and they just got us this, so. I don't know if anybody has any questions about it. I know I emailed you the whole document, and it's out on the webpage, and the village, and we are considered in the floodplain. I was hoping we were, so we get more money for that. I mean, I'm not hoping we are, but I am, you know, and, you know, with all the storms, there is some, when we talk about making your exterior shell stronger and those kinds of pieces that we work on. You think about pointing and those kinds of pieces, can some of those come through some dollars? But at this point, we don't know, because they don't have grants, and they apply with us or alongside us, or we apply alongside the village.
Questions for Becky? This one I think does come back to.
Yes.
Yes, it does. So, alright. Well, with that, I will move us to item 4, which is improving our academic achievement with accountability through data-driven practices. Item A is review our 25-26 co-curricular list.
So this is the list for next year of who we have in the spots, to bring great opportunities to our kids.
I will say, as someone who's watched this list year after year after year, I love the developing first year, second year, looking at you two over there, because I think that is huge for these clubs to grow and to try, and they're not all gonna work or succeed in movement, and so I love seeing that at the bottom of the document. I think it's been a great add.
And I think by pulling it out of the staff handbook, it allows us that flexibility, so, because sometimes there's passion projects that staff bring, and then they become a club, and then a person leaves, and then it's on there, and then the person who takes over is expected to do that same high passion, and that may not be where their heart is, so this gives us that flexibility to do that. And you'll notice there are some that aren't filled, because we don't have people in them yet. It's a lot of opportunities for our kids.
Questions for Becky on this one? It is approval item at the regular meeting. Seeing none, we'll move on to 4B, review the 25-26 athletic training contract with Osceola Medical Center.
It's the same that we've used in the past. We have an excellent opportunity and relationship. And our athletic trainer, Teddy, has been fantastic for our staff and our students. And the price went up $200. So we ripped it up and threw it away. Any questions? It was funny when I sent it to, Mr. Hahn and, Mr. Newton, and Jeff said, it looks really good to me for all the words that I understood. I said, excellent, that's good stuff.
Alright, it also comes back during the regular meeting, so any questions on that one? Alright, seeing none, we'll move on to item 5, aligning, developing, and supporting our staff, review the 25-26 board meeting calendar. So, as we took some feedback, we did a little reflecting prior to this meeting, what we would propose. You were up there, I'll take. Moving the board meeting from January 7th, which Jan had a conflict with, to January 14th. And then convention would be the following week-ish. And then looking at past board meetings, realizing we perhaps don't need the January 28th meeting. So concising it down to one meeting in January.
January 14th is a Wednesday.
The first is a Wednesday, the 7th is a Wednesday.
Yeah, what day, isn't the convention usually?
Tuesday through. Wednesday through.
Oh.
Technically Wednesday through Friday.
Okay, yeah.
So thoughts on that one? The only outlying one we have then would be, spring break post meeting in March, but we decided to kind of ride that one out and see how that lies. That's okay. Anybody else? Eddie, where are you gonna be March 18th, 2026? Oh, I love that journey for you.
In January, we did the 14th.
Perfect. Perfect. And then if any big projects come up that we need to schedule other meetings, obviously we have some time afforded in there, so. And that's all we have for committee meetings, so. Alright, so we will adjourn until 6:30. Thanks, everybody.